Welcome to another episode of Game Boy Roulette, where we take a look at randomly chosen games from the Game Boy library. Mr. Do. Do. Okay, silly title aside, Mr. Do is a game with quite a fascinating history behind it. The year was 1982, and arcade games were still riding high. Inspired by the insane success of Dig Dug, entertainment company Universal created a game called Mr. Do, borrowing a few gameplay mechanics, such as the side-on digging perspective. Mr. Do ended up being a big hit in both America and Japan, spawning several sequels and getting ported to everything from the Game Boy to the, Tomy tutor. In addition, the game's creator, Kazutoshi Ueda, co-founded Atlas and went on to develop the Megami Tensei series. Quite a history for an arcade game that never really reached the heights of its contemporaries. But there's one thing that Mr. Do did that changed arcades forever. It was the first game to be released as an arcade conversion kit. See, arcade owners had to constantly update their stock with new games, swapping out whole machines as new ones got popular. It could be quite cumbersome. Well, Mr. Do changed things. It was sold as a full arcade kit, insides and decals, so that you could easily install it into any old machine to completely swap out what game it was, thus eliminating a ton of hassle. This was a huge deal, and helped completely revolutionize how arcade machines were updated. I mean, how do you think all those Street Fighter II Championship Edition cabinets so quickly became Street Fighter II Turbo cabinets anyway? If you don't like clowns, turn away now, because this box has an explicit clown warning. In fact, it's one of the creepier clowns I've ever seen. The lack of facial features is really disturbing. Way more disturbing than the enemies he's fighting. This clown is the villain, isn't he? The famous arcade game gets shrunk down. Let's do it to it with Mr. Do. Mr. Do. Wait, is this the title screen or an ident screen? It's a mix of both. Oh, okay, I guess it was both. Anyway, the real title screen, Mr. Do. Whoa, wow, a lot is happening. Start and remix? I feel like we should start before we remix things. Oh god, we are right in there. Oh god, what? Huh? Okay then. Okay, here's what I do remember about the few times I've played this game in arcades. You can drop fruit. You have this dot that you can launch. I just saw the letter T running around. But first, let's grab some cake. Oh. Oh god, what if I... Ah! Excuse me? What do you want from me, game? Okay, and that was Mr. Do. Thanks, everyone, for watching. What? Alright, I'm gonna figure this out. Okay, so A to shoot. If it hits an enemy, it goes spiraling around. If I hit the letter T, it turns into fruit, as you do. And now this makes these weird enemies who also drop fruit appear. Okay, so should I just not? I guess I should just not be under them ever. And I think I got the letter E. It's hard to tell because the letters are bouncing up there, but sometimes the letters disappear. And also, how do you win? Oh goodness. I never thought I'd say this, but for this arcade game, we have to check a walkthrough. Okay, so the goal is just kill all the enemies. Yeah. Okay, it only hits one enemy, but it swings around. You know, I miss the simplicity of Dig Dug, which this game is significantly based on. Like, the company Universal based most of their darn it games on other arcade games. The graphics of this are nice, though, as is the music. I'm not sure I am enjoying this. Okay, so grabbing that spawns these things. And they instantly get me. I haven't even beat the first map? Okay, I think I did it. Wow, very little satisfaction, and then you just jump to the next stage. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm enjoying this. It's not awful by any means. But, like, for an arcade game, there's a lot going on. Like, too much going on. You know, one big thing about arcade games was trying to focus on the simplicity of the games. And this one, It's weird. The gameplay is simple, but the amount of stuff going on is just ridiculous. It's a bit of a sensory overload, I guess is my point. Okay, at the very least I am figuring out how to play, which is good. Okay, so it behaves kind of like the Super Ball from Super Mario Land. That's weird. Also, I did look up what the extra does. It's not like an extra game or anything, it's just an extra life. Okay, I'm thinking I'm understanding all the mechanics now. What the hell? That is this is a remarkable amount of ceremony for a single extra life. Wow. Okay, I kind of like the game for making an extra life feel like that big of a deal, but come on. Okay, so now the T is not filled in, but all the other letters are. And I can't really figure out the difference between those out. I think it's time to see what the heck remix is like. Remix. Audio option? POW? Music or POW? Let's do music. Skill option. Oh, this is awesome. When you hit left, you go right. Sure, that. Map detail. Very detailed. What? This is the same thing! This is the same thing, except there's no sound effects. What? Hang on. Okay, hang on. Audio option, we'll do POW and music. I think that's sound effects and that skill option. Let's do basic skill. Basic graphics. This still seems pretty similar. Okay, so the remix is just very minor changes. It's like what sound effects you use, difficulty, I guess. Yeah, I gotta say, Mr. Do, kinda disappointing. There's so much going on that it just becomes very confusing. Yeah, sorry, but Mr. Do, kind of a swing and a miss. Appreciate that extra life, though. All games need an extra life sequence that goes on for 12 minutes. More like Mr. Don't. Yeah, sorry, I had to get that one in there. How many times have I said this in the past? The key to a good arcade game is simplicity. Being able to jump right in and understand what you're doing is paramount to enjoying a handheld version of an arcade game. And in the case of Mr. Do, I think in trying to innovate and add to mechanics, they unfortunately went a little too far. I will admit there were some good points though. The game ran very well, the graphics were good, and the music was lively. Presentation is a big thing for these games, and Mr. Do thankfully didn't fall into the problem that a lot of arcade ports did of being lazily made. Plus that extra life cutscene was so completely unnecessary that I loved it. It's like 90% of the effort for this game went into that one bizarre animation. But at the end of the day, it's the gameplay that matters, and this one tipped itself too far into overcomplexity. There was a shocking amount to consider. How your ball bounces around, the speed that you go through the dirt versus paths, which enemies drop apples and which don't, the lettering mechanic that I'll admit I still don't quite understand. There was just too much going on to really get a handle on. Admittedly, that may just be a me thing and my general preference for simplicity, but I do think about someone going from Dig Dug, a very simple and fun game, to this, where there's way more to consider. And I just think it's a real misstep that made the game more complicated than it needed to be. If you're really into arcade games and enjoy ones that have a lot of mechanics, I think you could still enjoy Mr. Do, but I also think that for most people, it's a little too much to deal with. I appreciate iterating on arcade games to add new features, but for me, when you lose the simplicity, you lose the fun. Still though, the game gave me something I'll remember forever. I could just watch that cutscene all day. And that's all for another episode of Game Boy Roulette. Make sure to like the video, comment, and subscribe to follow the series as we continue to dig through the Game Boy vault. I'm Brian J, and I'll see you next time.